Hi, everyone. So this is, we find ourselves right now in the middle of the 3 week period. And the term that describes this week is called Ben Hametzarim. Ben Hametzarim, in between the narrows. In between the narrows. Now, why did the Kabbalists and the sages call it this, between the narrows? Well, there are several reasons, but the energy of this time period is narrow, meaning there is less infusion of mercy, less forgiveness, or I don't want to say it that way, forgiveness, but less forgiving. The energy of the cosmic is less forgiving in this time period because there's less of a feeling of mercy. There's no natural, it's almost like there's no natural safety net, if we can call it that. So everything, or how we will relate to this time period, is really dependent on our actions. What does that mean? Well, let's say there are interactions between two people. Great. The interaction, if we're both very careful how we speak to each other, and we're respectful of each other, and we're careful in that sense, that conversation will likely go higher than it would normally. Because generally, when we talk about the idea of mercy, mercy acts like a cushion. But the cushion acts in good situations, but it acts as a cushion in bad situations. In a difficult situation, it also acts in a cushion, so the bad doesn't get too bad. But by the same token, it also cushions the positive situation, so it also becomes a bit limited. Here, we have a different type of energy this month. Both the month of Cancer and both the month of Leo doesn't contain the natural cushion, or the code word is Shekhinah. The Zohar says that this force of a cosmic vessel doesn't exist. Therefore, it's only completely dependent on what we do or what we don't do. So the same conversation can go very, very high, or it can go very, very low if we're not careful and respectful and honoring each other, respecting each other's opinions, and all those things that are necessary to have a positive interaction with each other. So we do need to, so it takes what we would call more restriction, more power of our resistance to resist the temptation of going to the extremes that we may fall into. But when we use that care, when we inject love, when we inject our own element of compassion, so whatever we do will actually go higher than usual. So it's a very interesting time. It's there for us to use. It's also a time when we can correct different things, because in low times, as our teachers have said, in low times, it's an opportunity to elevate sparks that we also lost in those times that we were reactive. In those times when we made our mistakes, when we didn't, maybe respect each other, or we didn't care enough, or whatever it is, we lose some of that energy. Maybe we even created some negativity. Negativity really means we lose some of our energy. Okay, we were complaining, we were moaning and groaning about what we don't have. Well, loses energy. We became angry, loses energy. We were judgmental. We lose energy. That energy, it just doesn't, go. It becomes kind of trapped or swallowed up by other forces that we call the klipot. We spoke last week about the klipot, the shells that capture our energy. So we get opportunities, sometimes we get opportunities to be able to release that energy, and this is some of this time period when we can go low time to where negativity kind of hangs out. Chanukah is one of those times. We can use this time in that fashion as well to be able to go into the lower levels. It's a low time because it's a low time, but by maintaining our consciousness, we can elevate. So we have big support systems this week, big support systems. we have at our disposal to help us elevate the power of words, the energy of the power of words, and also the energy of what we call the life process, the process of life. Anytime we may have said, it's a process, and we say that all the time. I say that for myself, you know what, it's a process. I know it's a process. Or my kids, I know they're in a process. It'll be okay, but they're in a process. Aren't we all in a process? We're all in some process, right? What do we want from every process? Well, if at all possible, we would love that process to go a bit quicker than it's going right now. I mean, if we're already saying we're in a process, probably it's going too slow. So we have help. Help is on the way this week. So let's talk about the power of words. Now, it's very, very clear to us, or it should be, that not everybody's word is the same. It's just not. I'll give you an extreme example. My teacher, Rav Berg, when the Rav would say something, you would listen. You would hear everything and immediately listen and desire to do. If the Rav had a suggestion, or Karen has a suggestion, immediately you feel, I want to do that. I want to do it. Now, I could, give you a list of good friends of mine, and some I would want to listen to if they would say the same thing, but not necessarily everybody. Some people, not only I wouldn't want to listen, I want to do the opposite. Now, why is that? And I'm sure we all have similar experiences. Or maybe we're speaking to our kids. I mean, if you're a parent with children, I'm sure we would all love if we want to give our child some instruction that they will not only hear every word we say, and they will listen 100, 1,000% to everything we have to say, that we never have to say it even twice. Unfortunately, the sad fact for most parents, that's not the truth, okay? Sometimes a child will listen to one parent more than another parent, and it could be either the mother or the father, but usually not both the same. So, and it's interesting, it's an interesting dynamic. How does this whole thing work? Why do we hear people differently? Now again, I gave the example of my teachers or others who are in higher stages of consciousness. Why would we like to, or not only like to, and I don't think it's about a conscious decision, it's a desire that we have, that we just feel, we want to listen to that person, and we're not so excited, or don't feel the same desire. In fact, that person needs to use far less words. They can say one or two things and you get the whole picture. I've experienced that. I would hear my teacher say one or two words and you get a whole, you understand. What is that? It's like super concentrated energy in the word, in one word, in the same word that someone else might use, and you don't feel that. And some people have to speak a lot just to get their point across, whereas another person needs to say very few words and gets not only the point, even much more so. So what is that? In fact, another extreme concept, it says in the scriptures that the Creator wants us to respect the word of a righteous person even more than the Creator cares, if we could say it that way, about respect for the Creator. In other words, it's more important to the Creator that we respect the righteous person than the respect for the Creator himself. Now, why is that? And therefore, when righteous people, in the history, there are many, many stories of great Kabbalists who were able to say something and it would happen. They were able to say, it should rain, and rain would fall. I remember years ago, our teacher, the Rav, one of the staff members of the center, went and wanted to get married, and they were very, they really had a real desire, and the Rav was able to see the real desire of that person, that they wanted to get married, and the Rav said, you'll be married within the year. And sure enough, it happened. Of course, the Creator makes the word of the righteous man or woman happen. Why? The Creator makes sure that the word is fulfilled. Why? Because if a person, and this is possible, by the way, for any of us, if we are very, very careful ourselves to fulfill whatever we say we will do, then we can achieve the same type of power in our word. Because the level of fulfillment that will result out of our word, meaning how well our words will be fulfilled, will depend on our own actions of fulfillment of our own words. And I hope that's coming out clearly. In other words, if we are in the habit of just talking, and that's another aspect to it, talking and wasting words, it also has a way of weakening the power of our soul. Because our soul, when we give words, it's soul energy that we're expressing. So if we waste words, guess what? We're wasting pieces of our soul, sparks of energy from our soul. Of course, it depends what we're speaking about. If we're speaking words of sharing to help others, as an example, if we speak about spirituality that will truly help others elevate, then that extends, that strengthens the power of our spirit. But if we're just wasting words talking about nonsense, if we're gossiping, if we're talking about nothing, if we just spend time talking about something that doesn't even need to be said, sometimes we wonder what we're talking about even, or someone's telling us something and wonder, what is it that, I got it, an hour ago. No need to go on. So it's wasting words, it's wasting energy, and we waste the energy of our soul, which weakens it. So that means when we say something, or we'd like something to happen, and we express it, depending on the power of our word, which again depends on two major things. How much energy do we waste with our words? And number two, how well do we fulfill the words that we speak? Even if we say, I'll be home at 7, and we don't do that, we weaken our words. At least we should use that formula. If you don't know it, it's the words beli neder, without a vow. It's kind of a little formula to help protect our words if they inadvertently fail. That means I'll be home at 7, beli neder. When we say that, we've protected it, which means I don't want to call the energy until I'm ready to actually go home. So I don't want to draw down the energy to give me the power to get home only later in the day. I only want it when I'm ready to go. This way I'm protecting it. Now, this isn't meant to be abused. Say, I have no intention of coming home at 7, but I just want to make you happy, so I'll say I'll be home at 7, beli neder. That's not effective, okay? It means we have every intention of doing whatever it is that we said we're going to do. I'll pick you up, anything that comes out of our mouth. And we say beli neder, it's a protective mechanism just to assist us in not drawing down that energy. Why? Again, we don't want to weaken our soul. We don't want to weaken our energy. We want to maintain a strong word, which means we want to keep our soul strong. We need that. It's energy of our spirit. And we certainly need that for everything, for our health, for our clear thinking, for our ability to do more, for our motivation, to help our design, for everything. So that's one idea. The second idea is called the process of life that we said. And these two ideas are connected. We know every process that we go through requires certain elements. In other words, if we understand karma, or as we call it in Kabbalah, tikkun, it means that every stage depends on the last stage to go to the next stage, right? I need to complete one thing before I move to the next thing. It could, whether it takes, now, sometimes it's variable, means, well, it could take us a minute, it could take us 10 years. Sometimes we have the time. But some things that we may need to accomplish may be time limited. We don't know. And we don't necessarily have a way of knowing which things do I need to do now. And this is the opportunity. It's a window that I don't want to miss, because I may or may not receive another window. Or is it something that I need to accomplish along the way in my process? So we have a mechanism. First of all, for those who study the Kabbalah, or those who are more into Kabbalistic teachings, there is a formula called Ana Bekoach. Ana Bekoach. So this Ana Bekoach, which is something that you could find on, if you go to Kabbalah.com, there will be information about Ana Bekoach, or the ukabbalah.com. That's ukabbalah with two B's.com. You should be able to find information about the Ana Bekoach. This is a meditation of 7 verses, that on the superficial level, well, there's nothing superficial about the Ana Bekoach, but it has so many secrets, but it's layers. What it does in effect, it will help us transverse any process, which means get through that process more successfully and quicker. This is the power of this week, because there is a direct connection this week to that prayer, that meditation on a Bekoach. So it's something that we can definitely take advantage of this week. If you need more information about the Ana Bekoach, or for whatever reason you're unable to get it, well, I'll only be able to try the Kabbalah.com or the ukabbalah, of course. And you should be able to get information there. If it's not online, perhaps next week we'll be able to put it up as a post. Okay? So going through the process of life. So again, 2 things to be mindful of this week is the power of our words, and going through successfully and elevating through our process to make sure we go through our process. So the power of our words are going to help us do that. Watching what we say and watching to accomplish what we say. And using the safety mechanism, beli neder, if we say we're going to do something and we're confident about it, but we want to protect ourselves, beli neder. That's B-E-L-I, 2 words, neder, N-E-D-E-R, beli neder. We can say it under our breath. We don't have to shout it out, but it's to protect our words. But keep in mind, whenever we accomplish what we say we would, we get energy, we receive energy back from it. It reflects back in a vessel. The process that we go through to accomplish whatever we said, big or small, reflects back to us. In turn, that strengthens us. Or the opposite. If we don't do what we say, and we just talk and we waste our energy through just mindless, just talking just for the sake of talking, or we say we're going to do things, big or small, and we don't, we may not think it's a big deal. Oh, I just said this, but I didn't get it. Chips away. It drains us of some part of our soul's energy, which we need. We don't realize it, but sometimes, let's say we're crossing the street. We need our soul to be strong, because our soul needs to get the message to look this way or to look that way to make sure a car is not coming. Now, if our soul is weak, we don't know if we're going to have that energy. We don't understand how everything is connected, but it certainly is. So we need to be mindful of that and take advantage and understand also, remember, we're in those 3 weeks, the low point, but the low point is the best time for us to elevate to new heights that we've never reached before. Thanks very much.